Let's make some sourdough biscuits. I can't find organic buttermilk in my area, so I make my own. I use whole milk, organic whole milk from the grocery store, and then just a little bit of white vinegar to it. It's probably about a tablespoon of vinegar and 3/4 of a cup of milk. That gives me my 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk for the recipe. I'm also adding 113 grams of sourdough starter. This can be active or it can be discarded straight from the fridge. And then I'm going to stir that together. And then to this mixture, I'm going to add a tablespoon of local honey. You can add more or less, and you can even leave it out if you want. It's not completely necessary. Stir all that together, and that's your wet ingredients. Now for the dry ingredients, I'm going to grate a cold stick of organic butter. This is an easy way of incorporating the butter into the flour, which is necessary when you're making these southern biscuits. You want to make sure your butter is really cold, and you can even do this with a frozen stick of butter. So now to this, I'm adding 270 grams of my organic all-purpose flour. And I'm going to work this together with this little whisk. It's kind of like a pastry cutter. You can use a pastry cutter. You can even use your hands. But you're mixing the butter and the flour together until it resembles like a coarse cornmeal. And once that's together, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of baking powder. And I use the aluminum-free kind of baking powder. And a teaspoon of salt. I use sea salt for all of my salt needs, and mix that together. So now that's your dry ingredients. You're just going to kind of make a well in the middle of your dry ingredients and add the buttermilk and sourdough mixture. And when you're mixing up biscuit dough, you don't want to overwork it. You're really just waiting for it to all kind of come together. And then you're going to turn it out on a floured surface to be able to cut into your biscuits. So I'm going to dust my countertop with flour and add my biscuit dough. And to make flaky biscuits, you just work it to where you can fold it over on itself several times, and that's what creates those layers. And you don't want to press your biscuit dough down too hard. It's just going to make a flat biscuit. You want them to be fluffy and layered. And you can use a rolling pin for this if you want, but I usually just use my hands. And I use my biscuit cutter, which was my grandmother's biscuit cutter. This biscuit cutter is so old and it is so special to me. And I am buttering my cast iron skillet that's going to go into the oven. You can use any kind of baking sheet you want, but I just love using a cast iron skillet. Cutting out the biscuits and tucking them in close together. And it usually fills up this biscuit pan, this cast iron pan, pretty well. I remember as a little girl, we always wanted the little baby biscuit in the center of the skillet because there always was a small biscuit, which of course was made out of the leftover dough, but it was just a baby biscuit to us, and we loved it. So bake these at 425 for 20 minutes and enjoy any way you like your biscuit.